We are back with some board game news. This isn't about any particular board game, but it's about a few that just got awarded the Mensa Select Award. If you've ever heard of this, you've seen it surely on some games throughout time. Sure. I remember seeing the Mensa Select on a lot of abstract games. I think Quarto, one of my favorite games, is actually a Mensa Select.
That's a great example. I mean, Quarto is like the pinnacle, I think, of like what a Mensa Select game should be, honestly.
Yeah, it makes you think. There's decent value. It's an interesting concept. Those are the kind of things they consider, but I always kind of attributed it to those like wooden abstract games because that's what you saw it on mostly. But this year,
I think
there's a lot of games that have hit our table.
I think, now not to go off on a tangent or put too much emphasis on this, but I think for a long time, it was primarily like abstract games that qualified for Mensa, but I think we're seeing a lot of games that could be abstracts that are becoming more thematic. Like Wandering Towers, for example, which was added into the Mensa. This could have been a simple wooden abstract game.
I suppose.
It could have been, and the gameplay wouldn't suffer. But the fact that we have games that fit the Mensa criteria while also being fun, thematic, pretty-looking games, I think maybe that's why we're seeing a trend of games like what we saw this year, which were all really great, phenomenal-looking games to start with, and then they offer very accessible gameplay. And I think the staple, for me at least, when I see a Mensa title, is you're going to have to think about it.
Yes, there's some thinkiness to it. I don't think it necessarily meant it's complex, but I always associated with Mensa, oh, these are smart people.
They're going to keep your brain working.
They want something that taxes their brains. However, they don't want their brains taxed when learning the game. They want the game to be easy to learn and layered and more complicated to actually play and master. And I think we've got some here. Whether you agree or not, these are the 5 games that were awarded, and the way they did this...
These are not the 5 games. These are 3 of them.
These are 3 of the 5. These are the 3 of the 5 games that we own. There's 2 more that we don't have. But in no particular order, we have Wandering Towers, which Ryan already mentioned from Capstone. We've got Veil of Eternity from Mandu and Renegade here in the States. We've got In the Footsteps of Darwin. This one is from Sorry We Are French. And then there was Abduction, Abduction, D-U-C-K. It's this little game where you're trying to collect your aliens, like
collecting ducks into your UFO.
Collecting ducks into your UFO, you know, as they do.
It's a simple, that one is more of an abstract game.
And then the last one is First in Flight. This is from Genius Games. This one has hit our table in prototype form. We have a preview of that if you want to take a look at it.
Yeah.
Ryan never played it, but we did get a chance to play it back in the day. It's got some really cool push your luck mechanics that are built around the theme of being the first in flight.
Well, I think Genius Games is a perfect example. I wonder how many of their games have been Mensa Selects. Just because every one of those, they approach games with an idea of like, you're going to learn something when you're playing this game too. You're not, like First in Flight, you're not just playing a game, even though their games have all been like good, consistently good, you also do feel like you walk away, you're like, I've learned a bit about flight. I've learned a bit about how this all came together and how this happened. And I think that's a prime thing that Mensa looks for in a game.
Yeah, First in Flight was, for Genius Games anyways, less about a subject matter and more about historical learning, which I thought was really cool. But all of these have a lot of those things in common that they're looking for.
I mean, In the Footsteps of Darwin is another one that's based on, inspired by Darwin's adventures and you know...
Sure, cataloging
animals and going through the Galapagos. I mean, this is another one, too, that challenges you, but also you're learning something while you're playing it, too. And, of course, all the pretty animals on the back, on all the cards, it's fantastic.
All these games look very nice, quite frankly. Yeah. I mean, all the ones that are listed. Abduction, probably the sort of most simple of them all.
I would say that's the most simple. It's easy to look at Abduction and say, oh, it's gimmicky. I mean, it does come with like that big plastic UFO, and you're dropping the ducks in it, but it's fun. And you know, like whatever. I can accept a gimmick like that when it really adds to the theme of the game and feels like it's an integral part of that experience. We don't have that one. That's probably the one that component-wise is like the most fun to look at.
Yeah.
Because it is all these colored ducks and you're lining them up in different rows and patterns and abducting them into your UFO. So like that's a cool presentation for sure.
Yeah, and speaking of us having some and not having some, we are going to try to secure those other two. And what we're going to do is, for the ones that we haven't done content on, we want some content up on all these. Probably a just played review sort of thing where we get it at least played and let you know what it's like. You've heard plenty about Veil of Eternity
we've
from
talked
us.
about that and played it multiple
times.
Side note,
my game of the year last year
Yeah.
Does that mean I'm part of Mensa now?
You
Can
know
I act
what?
like I'm a smart person?
Side note, this whole Mensa thing sounds awesome, and I want to know how I get involved because it's like
I'm
it's
sorry,
a select,
they called Ryan and said you're not allowed.
Well, it is. I didn't know this, but we were researching it. It's
Oh.
a select group of people, and they basically fly out to this undisclosed location wherever.
Undisclosed?
Well, I don't know if the public
you're
gets to-
elaborating on
I
it.
don't think the public knows. It didn't
Oh,
say on the
sure,
website where it was.
They get together and
They
play
get together somewhere
for a
They- yeah.
weekend,
They
all
play
the new
all of them.
games.
Every new game that's submitted, they get to play through all. That's pretty cool.
And they pick 5 of them at the end of that weekend
Yeah.
to carry the Mensa Select label. So these games, the 5 we mentioned, have that label on them, which carries some cachet. You know, this is the kind of thing where if you go to Borders, if you're a publisher and you go to Borders or some of those mainstream outlets,
Borders still around?
Barnes & Noble, a bookstore, you get the idea.
Borders used to be a bookstore.
And it has a label on it that says Mensa
Oh,
Select.
that's an easy one.
Slam dunk.
Yeah,
The-
for sure.
The bookstores are going to be ordering a lot of those. I would even think Target and people like that, that's going to carry some cachet with those people. But we're going to get, we don't have content on In the Footsteps of Darwin, so we'll get that played, we'll get some content. We've played this plenty.
I've played so much Wandering Tower. I'm
Wandering
surprised we haven't
Towers
done a video on
is
that,
really
actually.
fun. What's challenging, the reason why we haven't done much is I've wanted to do it with a lot of players, and it's harder to get content up with a bunch of players around the table because this game shines at
Yeah,
6
I think
players?
it's up to 6
It's
players,
1 to 6
yeah.
players. 1? I'm not sure how 1 would work. There's got to be an automa of
I
some
haven't.
kind.
There is, but I haven't played it, so I couldn't talk
1 to
about
6
it.
players. We have plenty of Veil of Eternity, and we need to get a hold of Abduction too.
I'm really excited to play In the Footsteps of Darwin.
Yeah, and First in Flight, which you haven't played.
And that's true. I have been looking forward to that one since you and Emily first played
So
it.
you have our promise here. We'll at least get a hold of Abduction and get something up. We'll get In the Footsteps and Wandering done. We may rest on our laurels of having done
We
content.
might, or we might just
for
live
Veil.
stream it again because it was fun.
Maybe.
I
I
enjoyed that
love
one.
some Veil of Eternity. And then we'll also try to get a finished final copy of First in Flight and get that to the table so you can play it.
I'd
Maybe
love
even
that.
live stream
That would
some
be
of these.
fun. That would be a blast.
But let us know if you've played any of them and whether you think, like, oh man, Mensa got it wrong, or did they get
yeah.
it right? These are great games. I happen to agree. Well, I haven't played Abduction, or in this one.
I've played
but
Abduction, but
looked,
not In the
I've
Footsteps of
looked
Darwin
through
or
In the
First in Flight.
Footsteps, and it looks like a solid game that I want to play. I don't know about Abduction.
Also, it's worth noting, I don't know if this was made clear either. This is not like a Game of the Year nomination process. These are like the 5 winners. We're not coming
Yeah.
back with the winner. So, but you can still comment below and tell us which one you think
Is the best
is
of
the
them
best of the 5. I'd love to know what people think.
Hint, it's this one.
It's that one for you. It might not be. I know Wandering Towers is insanely popular.
They're all very good.
Yeah.
I kid, but I love me some Veil of Eternity. But let us know what you think down in the comments below. Until next time, though, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.